This conference will now be recorded.
I don't have anything.
Okay, I'll let you come over here and take it out on me personally if you want.
Yeah, as long as you pay for the flight.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
The recording's going. This is Peter Kafka. This is our first of the month of March 2022 high risk recurrent prostate cancer advanced meeting. And it's being recorded and we go for it. We have to be out of this room on the hour at 5 Eastern, or no, 8 Eastern. Excuse me, 8 Eastern. 8 Eastern. So we got 2 hours. We don't have a lot of people. We don't have anybody new right now. So those coming in, Russell Hoover, Stan Friedman, do either of you have anything tonight?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, well, we're going to start off. How about Les? You want to start us off?
Okay, I guess I can. Just briefly had a jaunt up to Mayo Clinic, had the C11 choline PET scan about 2 weeks ago, and there wasn't too much found. One thing that really confused me is my PSA has been going up since about June, and the last one was at 1.2 in, I think it was January, and the one 2 weeks ago was 1.1. Now, granted, they were at different locations, but the two locations had been right on the money for the last 8 years. So I was a little confused that it wasn't going up. It had actually gone down just a little bit. Anyway, they didn't find anything on the C11 choline, nothing to speak of anyway. They found something, some little thing on one of the testicles, and they were convinced that that was cancer, but they wanted to verify it with ultrasound. And so I had to stay over another day to do that. And they, with the ultrasound, they concluded that it is likely not cancerous. So it's quite inconclusive, but they have now set me up for PSMA scan, the Pylarify one, but that won't be until May. And that's about where I stand right now. I was quite confused that the PSA actually went down.
But only a fraction. It didn't go down much.
Right, yeah. But it had been going up.
Right. Did they do micro ultrasound on you or just the regular ultrasound?
Well, I don't know. They didn't call it micro, but they seemed to be quite thorough about it.
Yeah. What do you know what the limitations of the C11 are? Is there a minimum PSA that they can use, or they don't care about the PSA for that?
Well, they've done it on mine when it was something in the order of 0.5, if I remember right. It was less than 1, and they found something then. But this thing that they found in my testicle, I could hardly even see it. It was just a very, very slight image there, that no bright white light. thought they seemed like they were fishing for something when they come up with cancer from that, but it was something to look at. They felt it was like an inflammation, I guess. But hopefully we'll be able to get the PSMA scan in May. Hopefully my PSA won't be going up too much by then.
Les, why is it taking so long to get the PSMA scan?
That's their first opportunity. That, in fact, I had to wait a few days. They weren't even taking any more reservations for anything earlier than May. I had to wait a few days, so they'd start on May.
Yeah, but I mean, you can probably even get it closer, or set it up elsewhere if you. I mean, unless you're happy to wait till May. I mean, this is now widely available. Doesn't have to be done at Mayo. They can read the results.
Yes, but I'm not sure where else locally that you could get that.
Well, if you go to the Pylarify website, and I think we've posted it a bunch of times before, there's a geographical finder on there, and it'll tell you. Let me see if I can pull it up whilst we're speaking, because I know I've bookmarked it in the past. And there's a geographical finder on there, and it'll tell you where it's available. And then basically you've just got to call them up and make the appointment. I mean, it's not the process that's so important as the reading of the scan. I'm going to put it in for everybody. There's the link for the Pylarify locator, and let me open it up and we'll see. What's your zip code, Les?
61265.
61265. Hold on, that didn't work. Let me try it again. 61265. 61265. Let's see. There are 4 locations. Iowa City.
Oh, Iowa City has it now. Okay.
Yeah. Iowa City, West Iowa City, DeKalb, and Geneva. So, I would think about which is the closest to you, Iowa City?
Iowa City, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So, you might want to just, actually, there's even more. There's even more on there. There's loads. Elgin. I don't know my geography too well around where you are. Naperville, is that Warrenville?
That's near Chicago.
Okay. Lisle. So probably Iowa City. Iowa City is probably the closest, or DeKalb. But why don't you just click on that link, put it in, and you'll bring them up and set up an appointment locally and just ask them to refer you, and then have the results sent to them there.
Yeah. I don't know why I can't copy that link. It won't copy.
Just click on it. Just click on it. You don't need to copy it.
Okay, well, I figure that might get me to it right now.
Well, yeah, if you just click on it, it'll open in your browser.
Wow, I just got 1 million hits right in Connecticut. We used to have nothing.
Right. Are you getting it, Les?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. So,
Once you've got it open, then just save it. Save it to your favorites.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, what I would say, and this is good for everybody. I mean, this technology, this Pylarify technology has been very much standardized in terms of how they take the screening and even how they read the results, because there is there is artificial intelligence that is now used to read the results. So you may get a better result if you sent the results to, say, somebody like Marty Pomper, that who Herb is going to see. He might read it better, but to standardize it, and so that people in the middle of the country and where they don't have the experience, they're able to interpret these results with artificial intelligence. And so somewhere at Mayo, they can use the artificial intelligence and they can get their experts as well and compare the two.
Okay, now how do I get back to the meeting?
Well, the meeting should be in a
I hear
completely different window.
Right,
You
you
should have
click
two
on the
separate
symbol for
windows.
go to meeting.
Or just click on the orange icon that should be on the bottom toolbar.
Oh,
Right.
okay, yeah, there it is. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Have we lost Peter?
No, Peter's back. Peter's back. He's just having
Wait,
internet problems.
You're here twice.
It shouldn't be.
I'll get rid of the one
Oh,
that's
no.
not talking.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I turned my camera off. I turned my camera off because to see if I get better connection, but all of a sudden the internet went out. That's why I'm back. Okay. Les, did you hear me earlier? I know we went to the Pylarify thing, but my question to you was, is there a PSA minimum for the C11 scan, or do they not care? Does it not go by that at all?
They do go by that to some degree, but they've done it less than one for me, and things have picked up.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because not many people have the C11 anymore, and I was just wondering what the parameters were. I probably used to know, but I lost contact with that.
Well, according to them, they have done comparison studies on that, and they claim that in some cases the C11 choline picks up more than the Pylarify, in some cases the Pylarify more than the C11 choline. So they like to compare the two.
Right. Right.
That's all I
Well,
have.
at least your PSA is not, climbing and doubling or anything like that. So there's no panic.
Right.
But
Yeah,
Rick is probably right. You probably should get another scan. Yeah.
I'll check into it.
Okay. Herb, you had something you wanted to bring up tonight.
Yeah.
Yes?
Well, I mean, yeah, I just report that I just went through my 3 cycles of Provenge, and no big deal, other than the last couple of times the antihistamine just put me to sleep for a few hours, which might not have been so terrible. But what was interesting is that Provenge, according to all the literature and everybody who's ever talked about it, doesn't touch your PSA. And yet my PSA has gone down since January, since I started Provenge. And so is alkaline phosphatase. So I don't know what it means. I haven't discussed it with the clinicians yet, but it's something. Better down than up, as we say. Okay, that's it. Good.
It's great news, Herb.
Yeah, I mean, we like that. But Herb, does everybody know about your start date?
Well, I mean,
your
all
lutetium?
right, my start date is March 18th for lutetium. March 18th, which is a Friday. So, Jimmy, we can't go too near each other on the 19th.
Well, just know this. The reason that your mysterious drop in PSA is because you came to see me before. So that's all I got to say about it. Use your best judgment.
But the one thing I can say is that it's going to change my life significantly because my wife always wanted a hot husband.
Still hot, no difference.
That's a great dad joke, Herb. I'll call my kids so they can make fun of you too.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So nothing else to
Nothing
tell
else
us
new.
this week? It's all quiet there now that you've got everything settled down. You've settled down. Are you feeling better now that
Fine.
everything's
I'm feeling
moving into shape?
I'm feeling as good as I can. We just had a paper pretty much accepted yesterday, so that also raises my mood. So yeah, things are good.
Good.
And
And the treatment will be every 3 weeks?
every 6 weeks,
6 weeks. 6 weeks, that's right.
right?
Now,
So what are
did
you
you
gonna-
learn? Did you learn anything from Marty Pompous? And there is something I want you to share with these guys because it actually came up last night. So I'm going to ask these guys. I'm going to ask you guys a question. So we have a relaxed night. I'm going to ask you guys a question. How many people think that PSMA only shows up in your prostate and prostate cells? I want to show of hands.
Well, but come on, I can give a lecture here.
No. We're gonna let you give the lecture at the end. We want to see the state of knowledge first. How many people think it shows up in more than one place, 2 places, but not more than 2 places? Come on, let's see a show of hands. Larry? All right. So, I mean, I think most of you know that PSMA is found in the esophageal tract. We don't really know why. Nobody has ever really explained why. Probably maybe something to do with the development of the fetus. But as far as I knew, until I spoke to Herb last week, the only 2 places that you find PSMA is in the prostate and esophageal cells.
No,
but I was wrong.
Prostate and salivary glands.
And salivary glands. Okay, so which are in around the esophagus. So tell us where we're wrong. Tell us where else this shows up,
Okay.
Herb.
The history of PSMA, it was originally discovered in the brain as an enzyme that affected neurotransmission in the brain by a guy named Joe Coyle at Hopkins. And it turns out, after talking to Pomper was working with Joe Coyle on localizing this enzyme in the brain. And then he found out that it was in the prostate. And so he switched his interest. He used to be a neuro guy, and now he's a prostate guy. So, but in fact, it's originally in the brain. It still is in the brain. The reason that we don't get brain problems in general when we're getting PSMA is the stuff we're attaching to doesn't get into the brain. But if it did, we could have brain problems.
There's a dad joke in there. I know it.
No, I don't know it. I don't have it, Vic.
Is there any difference between the gallium-68 and the Pylarify as to where it shows up? Because my PSMA with the gallium, it showed a number of what they call physiological uptake. And both my lacrimal, salivary glands, nasopharynx, vocal cords, gastrointestinal tract, spleen, liver, both kidneys, ureters, and the urinary bladder.
I mean, kidneys and ureters, because that's the way it's getting out of the body, right? It mostly excreted in the urine. So yes, there are places where it will show up, and it's not just, even though they call it prostate-specific membrane antigen, it's a misnomer.
The other question was, what's the difference between gallium-68 and PSMA scan?
Well, gallium-68 is a PET emitter, and so is F18. And so they're attached to different, they have, one's attached to an antibody, the other attached to a peptide, so they go to slightly different places. And there's a big argument in the clinical literature about which is better. And I don't have enough insight to take sides.
The
For
F18
example-
is the FDG?
Right.
Question mark?
No,
No.
FDG is something else. But for instance, Dr. E likes gallium-68.
Right, but the only place you can get that is in California if you pay for it yourself, from what I understand.
Well,
Exactly.
technically, that's not true because they had a kit approved in December that was
Oh.
supposed to be circulated around the country. But from what I can gather, it really hasn't arrived. It's not being distributed the way it should be. So you have to go back there. But to answer the question, the Pylarify is the F18, is the scan that uses F18, and gallium-68 is the other alternative right now.
I see.
One of the issues with those guys is that the gallium-68, G68, has a very short half-life. So it needs to be generated very quickly before it's going to be used. You know, it only lasts for about hours. So you can't ship it around from site to site. You need to be able to have a generator on site. Whereas the Pylarify has a longer half-life, and that's why the company is able to distribute the product.
Right. But
And
the flip side, Joe, is that it's been, the one with the shorter half-life is going to be less toxic.
Right.
So they say.
But the apparatus is a cyclotron, and you have to have an institution that's big enough and has enough resources to have a cyclotron on site. So it's not, so you got places like UCSF, it's usually some kind of higher learning institution that would have this. Wouldn't be your average place.
Okay, any more questions about PSMA?
Now, let's move on a little bit to Frank. Frank, you had something tonight you wanted to bring up.
Yes, I have a couple questions. First question is to the group. How much brain fog has someone experienced who's on enzalutamide? Second question doesn't have anything to do with prostate cancer, but I had a bad case of sciatica, and they put me on gabapentin, and that didn't work so well. And then they now have me on Lyrica, and I'm having dizzy spells with the, I believe, with the Lyrica. Whenever I go to stand up and go to walk too soon, have a dizzy spell, I have to stand still, wait for it to pass, and then begin to walk. So I was wondering if anybody had experience with sciatica and those two meds. So those are the two questions.
So the man to talk to about enzalutamide is not on tonight, I don't think, unless it's the caller that just came on, and that's David Muslin, and he found the brain fog absolutely crippling, to the point where after 2 months or 3 months, I can't remember now, but it was not longer, he got off of it, and he went on to abiraterone. That's one example. Who else has?
Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson had a lot of problems with with enzalutamide.
Okay.
I've been on it for a year, and I've not had any ill effects.
Interesting. Yeah.
I've heard that
Right.
ENZA crosses the blood-brain barrier, but abi does not.
No, it's darolutamide that does not.
Ah, okay.
It's the
But then you-
darolutamide that doesn't, and Len will attest to how much better, and Peter, how much better they feel with it.
Yeah, I feel better. I was only on Zytiga. I was never on Enzy, but I feel better. Although recently I know that I've got some brain issues, but it might be age too. I don't know, or could be smoking a lot of marijuana when I was in my early 20s. I don't know what's causing it, but I think all these drugs are pretty damn powerful, and it wouldn't surprise me if all of them cause some degree of brain fog.
So what would be the, if I went back to my doc, what would be the next in line for enzalutamide to recommend to him that he switch me to?
Who wants to take that one?
Len, you take it.
Well, abi would be the easier one to switch to, Frank. Darolutamide, I think, would be your best choice, but particularly if you were talking about brain fog. But it may be difficult for your oncologist to get it for you because your metastatic
Castrate sensitive.
Oh, he's castrate sensitive, yeah. So yeah, abi would be the easier one to switch to.
But doesn't abi have to go with a steroid?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the problem for me with my diabetes. That steroid drives the numbers crazy, and my pharmacist tries to get me off of steroids anytime that I've been on them for a particular reason.
So that's a good rationale for you to explain to your doctor that he should try and get darolutamide for you because abi wouldn't be appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not tolerating enzalutamide. I'm not sure.
Are you getting your drugs to the VA? Frank, does the VA, do you get your drugs to the VA or independently?
Yes, get them all with the VA, but my doc had first requested darolutamide after my chemo, and the VA turned him down. But now, with the brain fog as an issue, it would give him ammunition to go back to the VA, and the VA will approve it if you have a problem that's been documented. So that would give me confidence. I could go back and request this now because I've found just progressively, I've been on enzalutamide since I finished chemo in May, and I went on enzalutamide in May. So I've now been on it over 4 months, longer than that, 7 months, and it has progressively more and more that I see that I find myself on simple stuff, just fighting to remember certain things and names of streets, medicines, just simple stuff. And
so Frank, there's another good reason why they may approve it right now, and one of the guys will put something, maybe Ben or Herb can put something in. But at GU ASCO, they reported on the ARASENS trial, and it showed exceptionally good results for men who had docetaxel, hormone therapy, LHRH as you are, docetaxel, and darolutamide. Now, it hasn't been approved yet, but the expectation, I was listening to a presentation earlier on today, and Petrolak at Yale thinks it's going to get approved even before the lutetium. That's his opinion. So they think that it'll get approved in a metastatic castrate sensitive setting very, very quickly. And, you know, with your brain fog and the evidence of that ARASENS trial, you may be in with a shot. Do one of you guys Len or Herb or Ben, do you want to talk a little bit about ARASENS?
Well, I mean, the ARASENS trial was combination. It was, as we talked about it, I gave a little talk before. It was basically, it's a triple combination of chemo, ADT, and darolutamide, all at the same time, or very closely spaced. So it's not exactly like adding Dara after chemo, but it's probably going to be, but given the results look pretty impressive, I think that once it's approved for castrate sensitive disease, it doesn't really matter with the ordering. For new guys, there'll be benefit, but it just means it'll be available to us.
Okay, that's all good information. I can take those specifics back to my doc, and then more information can be provided to the VA to be able to get off of the enzalutamide.
I got a little bit more to add too. This is John.
Go ahead.
I think it's quite likely that the VA will approve it second time around. I've been through those special applications many times myself, but in the off chance that they don't, Bayer, the company that makes darolutamide, will probably give it to you free. And I say that because they gave it to me for free when my insurance company turned me down for darolutamide without even failing enzalutamide first. And I'm still castrate sensitive. So if they turn you down, go on the Bayer website and you would navigate your way to the people that help you pay for your drug.
Patient assistance program.
Yes.
Yeah, they've been. This is the third year. This is the third year they've been sending it to me every month for free. I went directly to, and never goes through my insurance. So, and I'm sure they would perk up their ears if the VA, if your doc from the VA applied.
Mm-hmm. Usually, at least up to this point for my treatment, usually when the doc goes back to the VA to provide information on why they should approve the treatment, they'll in general back down and go ahead and approve it. So I have enough ammunition to go back to him and request that he do that.
Yeah, try it out.
Yeah, we can tell just talking to you that your brain isn't feeding you information the way it normally does, you know, dates and times and things like that.
Yeah, it just drives me crazy.
It must be frustrating as hell, yeah.
Yeah, it's stuff that I knew offhand, just simple stuff, and you just can't remember. And I never had that issue.
John, Dr. John, how are you seeing the difference between abiraterone, which you were on, and the darolutamide in terms of your sharpness and your thinking?
Roughly the same.
Interesting.
Abiraterone didn't have a big effect on me. Of course, I started it on the lupron at the same time, so I can't tell for sure what was doing what.
Right. Right.
When I switched to darolutamide, I got hit a little bit harder physically, but I didn't get that much stupider. I probably didn't have much stupider to get, so.
Come on. We don't buy that.
Hey, Frank,
Yeah.
I think a bigger issue here is you should get off of Lyrica. Number one, it's not effective for sciatica. You should get physical therapy for that. Number two, Lyrica is notorious for clouded thinking, brain fog. So you add the Lyrica brain fog to enzalutamide, and you got a double shot of bad news there for your brain. Talk to your doctor about getting off Lyrica.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to get off of it. I know it's pretty heavy stuff, and I want to get off of it as soon as I can. And I'm back now to about 90% with my lower back. The problem was a bulging disc on L23, and I know I have to get off of it pretty quickly because I've had 2 falls with it, and I can't do that.
I mean, if you've got this problem, Lyrica is not the drug.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is a stupid question, but these things do happen, and then we, dope slap ourselves. You did stop the gabapentin before you started the Lyrica, right? You're not on both.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. No, I stopped the gabapentin when that wasn't working. I got an epidural first, and most of the docs you talk to, you should, if you're going to see results, see it in 2 to 3 days. I didn't. So then they started me on gabapentin, and I didn't see any help with that. And then they switched over to Lyrica, and I started to see a slow progression of improvement and less pain. And right now, as I said, I'm back to about what I think about 90%, and I don't have the high level of pain I had going down the sciatica on my right leg.
Good.
Hey, Frank. Hello?
Go ahead.
Gary Peters, that's who the mystery caller is. Go ahead, Gary.
I'm sorry, I'm on the phone and I can't tell when you can hear me. But I had both of those drugs also, Frank. I also had more relief from Lyrica, but I didn't have any of that, of those feeling faint episodes that I can recall. The only other thing I can think is that they may be affecting your blood pressure. And if for some reason they're taking your blood pressure very low, that could give you that experience.
Yeah, I've been to the VA for 3 different appointments since I started the Lyrica, and my blood pressure has been around 115/70, and it's been consistently in that area, not real low, and so I don't think it has affected it that way.
Okay.
It's just that it's if I move too fast, it just blanks my head and I fall.
Frank, do you have grab bars in your shower?
No.
Put them in. Put them in. That goes
Yeah,
for everybody.
I have to, but I have a chair in the shower now, so that's step 1.
Yeah, but you got to stand up at some point. So, You know, I think all of us should. I mean, it's not a black mark against us. Stick a grab bar in your shower or two.
Yeah, I think
really
that's a very
worth it,
good.
because that's where you can lose it.
Grab
You don't
bars and something on the something to keep from slipping.
Mhm.
Yep.
Frank, what you are experiencing is postural hypotension. If you do a little research on that, you'll read up on techniques you can use to prevent it.
And what's that again, Len?
Postural hypotension.
Is that the same as orthostatic hypotension?
Yes.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, got it.
You have to stand up very, very slowly from the bed, like in stages.
Yeah, that's what I found is when I've been sitting too long, and then I go to stand up, and I start walking too fast. My brain will start getting dizzy, and I have to stop and wait for the dizziness to pass. If I don't, I'll fall.
I mean, most commonly it's when the gravity is just stopping the blood from circulating normally to the brain, so it stays pooled, and your brain is not getting like enough blood circulation to stabilize itself. So you have to give it a chance to circulate. I don't know if that's the case in your case, but that's usually what happens.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'll have to look up this postural hypotension.
Right. And you're on quite a mixture of drugs and stuff. I mean, all of us got to watch it with all the drugs we're taking. I mean, so they all have some pretty strong, powerful effects on us sometimes. So careful.
Yeah, it's amazing what it does to you.
Okay.
Well, thanks for all the help.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Keep in touch with us.
Sure.
How's you're still on the oral LHRH drug, right?
Are you talking about Orgovyx?
Yeah, Orgovyx. You're
Yeah.
still and you're still traveling the world as a representative?
Well, I was supposed to go on one ambassadorship to Florida, and I had to cancel because of the sciatica, because there's no way I could have been mobile enough to go. But I'm back on their list to be able to go out and speak to groups and share my story with them. But yes, I'm still on Orgovyx, and again, very, very pleased with the results of it.
Good. Okay. Pat Martin, you said you had something tonight. Yes?
Peter, before we move on, can we just give a plug to the Zero Summit this weekend? Joe, do you want to say a few words about the Zero Summit?
Okay. Well, since Jim Straight's not here, I guess I can do it. The Zero Summit is a variety of topics on prostate cancer, covering the whole gamut from everything from the newly diagnosed through advanced, through radiation, to extended immunotherapy. There are a whole bunch of topics on there. If you go to the website where you register, doesn't cost you anything to register. Go to that site, you'll be able to see the variety that's on there. And it covers all sorts of things for support and otherwise. It starts Friday afternoon Eastern, and it goes through Tuesday. And a lot of the sessions are either pre-recorded, so they're called on demand, even though they're scheduled during a day. You can actually, because I was out peeking at them earlier. You can get to see a lot of the premier folks that are talking on the different topics, and then there are also some of the other sessions that are available for interaction. They have a couple of sessions that are on a particular topic where you go in for an hour into basically it's a chat room and you can discuss it. And although you guys aren't interested, I know 3 guys that are going to be doing an active surveillance one at 11 o'clock on Eastern on Monday. So, but there's such a variety there. So, I would suggest go register, take a look at the agenda, and decide which ones you want. And if there's something that you want to beyond that, like if you want to say, I want the immunotherapy, but I can't go to that particularly scheduled one, realize that it will be saved and available afterwards.
Very good. And this is their annual conference, correct?
Yep, this is the annual conference, exactly.
And I've put the link to register in the chat window. It's above Len and Dennis's message. You'll see it there.
At 6:49 p.m. Eastern. But guys, it's really worthwhile. Because it covers the whole gamut. Some of the topics you're going to say, well, I'm not that interested in anymore. But some of the others, and even on through to down to some personal support things about dealing with the insurance companies.
Thanks. Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Excellent.
And now I'm going to go be zero. So good night, guys. I got to jump
Good
off.
night. Thank you, Joe.
Hey, good night.
Always. Thank you.
Okay, Pat Martin, you're up.
Okay, thank you. I've got an appointment with Dr. Schweitzer in a couple of weeks, actually, week and a half. And my PSA has been, in 3 months, the multiplier is about 2.12. It's still very low, still 0.6 in January, December. And so be looking at something besides the ADT and abi that I'm doing right now, possibly. I'm available. I've got enough MSI high to be eligible to do Keytruda, and I know Dr. Schweitzer is doing a BAT plus olaparib, and I've kind of compared the notes on those and side effects, and I was wondering if you got any input on that. Which would be better. I've been on ADT for about 5 years now.
Oh, you're asking us to compare an anti-PD PD-L1 like Keytruda or nivolumab to olaparib. Is that right, Pat?
Yeah, yes, it is. With the BAT, with the bipolar androgen therapy.
With the ADT. So
yeah.
Herb or Len, do you have some input on?
It depends, Pat, on what your biomarkers are. If you have DNA repair deficiency like BRCA2,
no,
it's not.
I've got MSI high.
What's that?
I've got microinstability high.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so then Keytruda would probably be the more appropriate drug for you, more likely to be effective. I don't think olaparib will help you much if you don't have any kind of DNA repair deficiency mutation. Yeah. I don't know, what do you think, Herb?
No, I agree. I mean, that's at least those are the approved indications, right? The approved indications for olaparib are if you have a mutation in one of these DNA repair genes, especially BRCA1 or 2, they're most efficacious. But if you don't,
Guys, what about this PROPEL trial where it seemed, and there seems to be a lot of excitement over the PROPEL trial where
I'm not sure.
abiraterone and olaparib together with people that did not have a HRR mutation seem to have had some effect. What do you think of that?
I watched the presentation and I watched the discussion, and there was a lot of skepticism in the audience about that, because the comparison trial where they actually looked at indicators of DNA repair did much better. So I'm still, what I really want to do is sit down and compare the PROPEL results with others. But I can tell you, if you replay the discussion at the meeting, it wasn't all that exciting. A lot of skepticism.
Well, it's interesting because I listened to this 2-minute session where they had Alan Bryce, Tanya Dorff, and Dan Petrolak and a bureau earlier on today, and 2 of them thought that was the most exciting information in the meeting. They picked that as being their highlight in the meeting. Now, I heard from you that maybe there was the trial design wasn't that great, so I was skeptical. But they think it's going to give legs to PARP inhibitors with abiraterone.
We'll see. Time will tell. We'll see what the results are over a long period of time. I mean, I'm sure people are going to try it, and we'll learn.
What about the comparison of side effects of an immunotherapy drug versus the side effects from a PARP inhibitor?
I don't have it.
Go ahead, Herb.
No, Len, you must know more than I know.
Probably not, but the side effects of olaparib, most concerning, are bone marrow suppression. Now, the side effects of Keytruda and other immune checkpoint inhibitors varies quite a bit from person to person. It could be potentially serious side effects, but some folks do well. And I don't recall with clarity the biomarker. They use a biomarker to determine if you are likely to have serious side effects from a drug like Keytruda, but I don't recall what it is. Do you know, her?
No.
Emuta. I'm putting it in the thing right now.
Oh, yeah, Peter knew about it. So maybe get yourself tested for that biomarker.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think if you talk to Dr. Schweitzer, he's going to be very familiar, I'm certain, with what went on at GU ASCO. He was, I expect he was probably there. And I would definitely be asking him about the PROPEL trial for his view on it, because this was the trial that combined abi and olaparib, and you're on abi, I think, right now, are you not?
I am.
Yep. So ask him what he thinks, and then definitely this Immudex swab will give you an indication what sort of side effects you might have. The side effects from the anti-PD-1s can be significant in some men. I mean, rashes, it can turn your immune system on you. Most guys seem to tolerate it that we've known. relatively well, but I would say most of them have had issues with skin issues and what have you. So, and as I agree with Len that, you know, probably the biggest thing with the PARP inhibitor is suppression of your blood counts and anemia issues. And we've seen that going back years, that some men do have issues around it lowering their blood counts. Why, Herb or Len, why is that? What is it in the PARP inhibitor that causes your blood counts?
I have no clue. I mean, because the mechanism that it's working at is essentially preventing a DNA structure, and it's not clear to me that it's related to the mechanism. So I don't know.
Okay.
So Pat, this is a subject dear to my heart because I know that the same quandary is the next branch of the tree that I've got to of the prostate cancer tree that I've got to climb, because I've got both the MSI marker and the BRCA2 somatic mutation. So I can go either way or both in this, and I've kind of been weighing this, and I talk to my oncologist all the time about this. I'm not ready to make that move yet, but I know if things go south, I've got to make that decision too. And it's hard to, I mean, nobody knows what's, in my situation, what's driving my cancer. Is it the mutation that the MSI high is a factor in, or is it the BRCA2 somatic mutation? I don't know, but, and which is the best route to take? It's an amazing question. So maybe you do one after the other. I don't know in my situation what I'm going to do, but I feel for you.
When was the last time you got when was the last time that you got a next generation sequencing, a somatic sequencing?
I can't remember right offhand, but when he did, he told me that I was a likely candidate for Keytruda because of the MSI high.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just because this stuff changes, and that's another thing I was going to say to Peter. Peter, I mean, it's a while since you did, and you may have reverted on your BRCA, and it may not be there anymore since it's a somatic mutation. And so, you know, fortunately now, the insurance companies seem to be accepting that men can get this repeated, this testing repeatedly. You know, with about a year, at least a year absence. When it was first approved, it was a once in a lifetime, and we went back and we said, no, the disease changes. And Medicare agreed, and CMS, and they made the changes for us. And we did that through FMI, and we gave our testimonies and stuff, and we said, I don't know, however they do it, but we did get it changed. And so what I'm saying is to people like Pat, who was MSI high, it's probably also worth checking your NGS, or for somebody like Peter, because we've known people that have been BRCA positive. Len was BRCA positive for somatic, and then a couple of years later, it wasn't there. Isn't that right, Len?
It was found in my original biopsy analysis, but then when they did a bone marrow aspiration, and like 5 years later, they didn't find it in that particular core, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Just wasn't picked up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, I think that today, especially with the better reliability of liquid samples, that you know, we can test that again, because the liquid samples are much more representative of everything that's going around in your body than a simple core. The other interesting thing is, as Steve Saft well knows, is that they cannot estimate MSI high very well from blood, but they can get a much better reading on MSI high from solid tumor samples. We've seen so many times that the blood, when you've gone and got a liquid, it invariably comes back as not measurable. But usually you'll get a reading off a solid tumor sample.
This is John. Pat, do you happen to have a cardiologist?
No, I don't.
I just happen to have looked at a couple of papers this weekend about checkpoint inhibitors and cardiomyositis. And if you do happen to go on pembrolizumab, maybe just, tell your doc that there's a risk of heart problems.
And
Dr. John, would you like to do a little promotion as to why you're doing this? I think you're very much entitled to do so. There's more to what John says than there's behind the scenes.
Well, we
Go
talked
ahead.
to a guy. We talked to a guy today by way of an old colleague of Rick's named Priya. What, Rick? Priya
Menon.
Priya Menon, and she brought together a couple of us along with a cardio-oncologist. Now, I guess you guys had a cardio-oncologist last summer named Darryl Leong, right?
Right.
And so here's another cardio-oncologist who presented some material today. So to prepare, I read a couple of his papers, and he did talk about, immune checkpoint inhibitors are used more in breast cancer. We only use them for the few of us who have what I guess Pat must have and are on Keytruda. And of course, with breast cancer, the heart also gets irradiated, so there's that extra problem. But this guy's had a lot of expert knowledge about the effect of drugs on the heart, and experience in managing cardiomyopathy and cardiomyositis provoked by this class of drugs. So I guess if it could happen with that class of drugs in the treatment of breast cancer, I don't see why it can't happen with pembrolizumab in the treatment of prostate cancer.
So, John, what's the incidence?
I don't know.
Is it frequent or rare?
It's not so frequent that people are scared of the drug and would avoid it, but it's frequent enough to, be the subject of case studies and papers and series of patients. I think I didn't get numbers for you off of the papers. I wish I did.
No, I mean it's just something you really should be aware of. So if the symptoms pop up, you can be aware that that's what it could be.
Well, if you look up Keytruda, I don't think you'll even see it on the list of major side effects to look for. Rick sent me some stuff that was designed for patients. It wasn't on the list, of the top 10 side effects. But when you read Dr. Moslehi's papers, you really get scared about it.
So, John, would you be good enough when you get the link for the cure? We should add that this was a cure talk. Some of you may be familiar with cure talk.
This was a cure talk, yes.
And Priya came to me and said, do we have somebody in AnCan that would like to talk about, represent us and talk about cardio issues with respect to prostate cancer? And of course, John is a perfect peer for that, plus knowledgeable and did some homework. So John, if you would send me when you get the link through for it, because I don't think I registered, and then we'll be sure to blog that and include it in the list, in the reminder, so that people can listen to the talk today. What was it, about an hour, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
About that, yeah. Yeah, the guy was great. And so was Dr. Liang. Last summer, I went back and listened to your presentation, and that was great. And his question and answer period after his talk last summer was really great too.
Yeah. And that's on our website, guys. I'll put the link. I'll find it and put the link in the chat window right now. The one for Darryl Young. That was a webinar that he did, a seminar, I should say, that he did for the active surveillance guys. FYI, we're doing a seminar tomorrow night with Dr. Munster, Dr. Pamela Munster, who Carl knows and some other people know. Because she's involved in some research for the use of hormone therapy to treat active surveillance. And she's on our board. And she said to me, is there any way I can get some feedback from your guys about how they would feel about this? And I said, yeah, well, why not give a seminar to them and ask them the questions? I said, well, our guys are all very vocal. They're going to tell you what they think. So tomorrow night, she's going to be talking about the prospective use of some type of hormone therapy to manage people with low risk disease. So all of you, of course, are welcome. It'll be at 8 o'clock in the Boniscus room. But I'll put Darryl Young's webinar in there. He was really good last year. He was really good.
Okay. So Pat, I'm going to jump over to Carl Foreman, but Carl is the person that comes to mind who spent a while on olaparib. And he might, before you start going into your thing, you might want to tell him what your experience was with olaparib, Carl.
I'd like to have one more question if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
How soon should I start this? I'm at 0.6 right now. I anticipate, yeah, it goes up a multiplier of 2.12 every 3 months. So relatively quick doubling time. How soon should I start it? Start any new treatment.
Do you know where the activity is? Have you done a scan at 0.6? No.
Not lately. Not lately. I believe I had a scan, a oximum scan about a year and a half ago. November of 21. No, November of 20. And so that was the last scan.
At 0.6, you might be eligible for a PSMA scan. It might give you a little more information about where the activity is, but but I don't know. I can't weigh in on when to start.
Yeah.
Anybody else have a thought?
Yeah. I mean, my thought is this is something you've got to decide with your doc, but I do think, how extensive do you think your metastasis is at this point, Pat?
With a PSA 0.6, not very. And the last scans were mostly lymph nodes in my pelvic region. They saw a couple spots on some of my back, but they dismissed it as probably arthritic.
So, I mean, another option in treatment that is proved if you're oligometastatic is to do spot radiation and hopefully get some abscopal. I mean, I heard of a situation this past week where Dr. E is putting one of our gents on olaparib, And before that, she wants him to do some spot radiation because she strongly believes that the abscopal effect from the spot radiation will actually improve the response to the olaparib. So that's another thing to bring up with Dr. Schweitzer. You know, if you were going to do olaparib, would it pay to do a little spot radiation first? And if it does, why not get a PSMA scan and let's see where the disease spots are.
Yeah. Get the target. Thank you. Very good information. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. Carl, do you want to tell us before you start off what your experience was with olaparib? I know you've mentioned it before, but it might be useful to remind Pat.
Sure. I was put on olaparib as a result of genetic testing, which showed that I was BRCA2 positive. This was back in January, February 2019. And my oncologist was able to get me off-label use for olaparib because at the time it had not yet been FDA approved. And the only other way of getting the medication would be to be put on a clinical trial for that. So I did not have to go into the clinical trial. And I was on it for close to 2 years. There was no side effects of any real significance during that period of time. And it kept my PSA as undetectable for close to 2 years before it ran its course. So, I mean, that's the gist of the olaparib. I also was on Keytruda as part of the most recent clinical trial I was on with Tagawa at Weill Cornell. And I can say that my side effects, I think, of the Keytruda were more than they were with the olaparib. And also, in talking to Tagawa, and of course, I'm sure he was biased and he wanted to get people on his trial. But at the time when I said to him, I said, look, I understand that Keytruda, you need to be MSI high and you have to have a low tumor burden in order for it to be effective course of treatment. And I was neither. I have a low tumor burden and MSI stable, MSS. So he said, well, you know, the combination of the drugs will have a different outcome. Well, it didn't. But anyway, that's my short story over there. I did want to have a little bit of time here to discuss the fact that I am going on to chemotherapy tomorrow, my second round of Jevtana with carboplatin. And in advance of that, I had blood work, which I received back last night. So there were a couple of points that that kind of stood out, and two of which are relating to the liver. One is AST and the other one is ALT. Both are liver enzymes, from what I understand. And in both situations, they've jumped to a high range. And I can say, like the ALT, as I'm looking at it, it says the reference range is up to 46. I'm at 119. And the AST, the high reference range is 35. And I'm at 86. So tomorrow, before I take the chemo, I will be having a meeting with my oncologist and we'll be talking about that. My daughter, who was a oncology nurse, when I mentioned that to her, she said, well, you know, that's probably the toxicity of the chemo that's causing these elevated levels. Is she right? Well, I'll find out tomorrow. And so other than that, apparently the good news is that the PSA has dropped dramatically. And it's never dropped this much in my journey, to the extent that the previous PSA several weeks ago was at 62, which was the highest it had ever been for me. And that as of yesterday, it's 14. So,
Jeez, Carl. Whoa, Carl.
Nice.
That's an amazing drop. You know, I hope it's correct. It's not something wrong with the lab. I did it through Quest, but I'm looking at it from a positive standpoint. That's incredible for me.
Take the win, Carl. Just enjoy it.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, you know, the second round will be tomorrow, and then it'll be another 3 weeks before I get the next PSA, and let's hope that it will continue to decline.
But they don't take labs before your chemo every time you go?
Yeah. The chemo's tomorrow, and I had the labs yesterday.
Okay.
So, Carl, I mean, I'm thrilled. I mean, you must be totally elated. I'm thrilled, and I have to say that, you know, probably on behalf of the moderators here, we really hope that was the result that you'd get from the taxane and carboplatin, and one of the reasons why we've been trying to push you towards it, because your disease sets up for that treatment, and it's just fantastic. I mean, I'm so happy for you. You know, obviously the side effects from the chemo are going to be cumulative. I mean, I know most of the guys on this call who have done chemo. I've never done chemo, thank God, but others who have, you know, they tolerate the first couple pretty well, and then it starts to go downhill. And poor old Peter, you know, when he got to number 6, I think it was what number, Peter?
4, number 4.
4. Yeah, but hang in, man, because we really think this is going to knock this disease back heavily. And so I'm thrilled, Carl. I'll speak for myself, but let the other guys talk too.
No,
because
Carl,
we feel that we're on this journey with you, man.
Yeah.
Right. This is, you know, we pushed you towards it because we really all thought that this was an appropriate therapy. And so I'm glad you finally are doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I just keep thinking to myself, is this really true? But yeah, like Steve mentioned, well, hey, enjoy it. And on to the second round. And
Right.
also I have to say that my white blood cell count is at a really good level. And I think that was, you know, they gave me Neulasta last time, and that's really boosted the white blood cell count. Nothing's really changed very much with the red blood cells. I'm still somewhat anemic, and you know, it is what it is over there. So my wife says I should be eating more steak. I rarely eat any kind of meat, but she said I should start eating steak.
What did your daughter say? What did your oncology nurse daughter say when you gave her this news?
Oh, she said that was incredible. She never saw such a big decline in PSA within a short period of time. So, yeah, I'm hitting the record books.
Good.
Len, say something.
Yeah, I'm thrilled also, Carl. So third time is the charm, I guess, right? You had a couple that were flops.
Yeah.
Now this one hit big. And I have to tip my hat to Rick, primarily, I guess, who he was pushing for chemo for you at the very beginning.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
We're just thrilled. It's fantastic.
So, I mean, so the red blood cells, any recommendation as far as to improve?
Right. You know, just Carl, go with the flow. I mean, there may be changes as you get more and more doses as your second or third cycle, but let's see what they are before you go crazy.
Okay.
You haven't heard this before,
How
Carl. You haven't heard this before, but I think maybe steak.
Steak.
Yeah. Well, that's right. Your wife said that.
Or iron supplements.
Forget the damn steak.
I do want to raise something with the red blood cells, and because I know there are pros and cons to it. I know it's something Peter tried, and I think it's worth us talking about the pros and cons, but Well, what are the issues around Procrit? I know it's controversial, but what are the issues around Procrit, guys?
Well, the only concern is that it can be promoting tumor growth. So that's why they hesitate to give it. They don't like to give it unless your hemoglobin is down below 9.
Right. And then even then, they might opt for a transfusion.
Yeah.
It's just there are too many other negative side effects.
From
How low is your hemoglobin, Carl? How low? How low is
it's the 10.4. 10.4.
Yeah, so that, you know, that's one of the issues with chemo. It does affect your hemoglobin, so they're going to watch it carefully.
Yeah, I got as low as 8.5, and I did not want to do transfusions. So, and my doctor in California kind of negated. He said recent studies didn't show that the tumor growth was promoted by Procrit. So my local doc didn't use that argument, and he didn't want to put me on it. But I did go on Procrit, and I think it helped me out. I had a shot every 3 weeks, and all the time I was on chemo and beyond it, and then I went off. But so yeah, I don't know what to say.
Question I will ask
But I went down to the low 8s, and I made it through.
You know, that particular question about Procrit is one that really needs to be answered. This must come up all the time in cancer patients, and it seems like we really need to know whether Procrit is safe for us or not.
Anyone else have any knowledge or views on Procrit? I know I'm really weak on it. I just know it's controversial, and
well, I certainly know that the hematologists at NIH were not in favor of EPO, which is what Procrit is. They've said they've seen enough other bad stuff that they didn't want to use it. They would opt for a transfusion.
Well, Schultz and Company, I mean, they have their own infusion set up right there in their office. I mean, they're private oncologists. They're not affiliated with an institution, but they said Procrit is their go-to drug if there's low red blood cell count.
I'll interject something. When my blood count got low, my primary care had me taking iron pills, and all they did was constipate me. So she set it up to have an iron infusion, and I got 2 iron infusions, and it cleared it right up, got me up over the top of things, and blood count has been very good since then. So it's just an iron infusion. Put a port in 2 times the iron.
Yeah, I've been taking iron 3 times a day, and it's really
I don't know how
helped me.
you poop.
It's not. I don't have any trouble at all. I've never had trouble in that department.
You know, that doesn't really make that much sense to me. Same thing about the steak. We don't get anemic because we're low on iron.
Well, I mean, actually, John, they checked all of my numbers, and yes, I was low. I had problems with ferritin and all other stuff.
Well, that means that you had to lose that iron somehow. It doesn't.
Right, and we don't know why, because you normally think you lose it through internal bleeding or something, right? But there's no signs of any of that. Right.
I became slightly anemic when I started the hormone treatment and have been since.
Yeah,
Nobody
all of
seems
us
to be
do.
too concerned about it.
Yeah, but the anemia may not be iron deficiency anemia.
No, it's you probably not.
I don't think it is in my case.
But for me, it was.
Unusual, I think. I mean, that's why I don't think we should all go on iron or eat
Or eat
steak.
steak. Well, eating steak
Yeah,
is, I think we should all eat steak. Oh, no, leave more for me. I'll have yours, John.
I think it's
Okay, you can
I
have
think
mine.
it's a mistake.
Put out some steak with iron on the side. Tonight.
Good thing we're not busy.
I've been somewhat anemic since the beginning of this journey. For 8 years ago was the last time I was in the hit the minimum. Since then I've been below it, and I think part of it's genetic. I know my dad was anemic most of his life, and I've tried iron. Yes, I don't eat meat and so forth. I do eat fish. I don't know what the answer is, but I've learned to live with it. It's not fun. I mean, you don't get as much oxygen in your brain. Going back to the brain fog consideration earlier, you certainly don't have as much energy. It's not fun, but I don't know how to stop it at this point.
I mean, I was anemic before I even, Peter, I was anemic even before I got sick. I just had a low-grade anemia.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. I mean, this is also very helpful for me and for us moderators to bat this stuff around, because like Dr. John says, it comes up a lot. And as I said when I introduced it a couple of minutes ago, this Procrit is very controversial. Len's just posted something about it in the chat window, and yet, despite all of that, doesn't seem to bother Dr. Schultz. So,
well, it did say that those rare, possible but rare side effects. We have to keep that in mind.
Right. Right. Well, we like the rare because that goes with the steak. Yeah, and I guess there's no iron in fish, Peter, because otherwise they'd all sink to the bottom, right?
Right.
No, if there were iron in fish, we could just catch them with a magnet.
Yeah.
You guys are the dumbest smart guys I ever met.
Yeah, and if you eat the sinker, you're going to get too much lead in your blood soon.
Oh boy. Peter, I think we got to move on.
Yeah. Okay. Who else has something? I think I've reached.
Yeah, I'll give an update.
Dennis McGuire, did you have something?
Sorry.
No, he didn't. Stephen Sapp did, though.
I could give an
Stephen
update.
Sapp, you had something.
So, I guess I talked a little bit last week about bailing out of the clinical trial. Since that time, there have been a lot of things going on, many of which have been very stressful. But one good news, going back to take the win, is that I did start on abiraterone a week and a half ago, almost 2 weeks. And my PSA for the first time since, I don't know, I think June, went down to 113 from 150, where it was 3 weeks before. Unfortunately, my ALP went up from 460 to 589 or something like that. So it's not consistent. I don't really know what to make of it, but down is better than up. It's all I can say at this point, and that's the way I'm looking at it. I have had a blood biopsy with Foundation One. Those results are back. I'm waiting to review them with Dr. E. I did finally get my doctor, my oncologist at Jefferson, to order a Pylarify test, which I'll be getting on Friday.
Oh, mazel tov.
And I also will get spot radiation tomorrow, which happens to be my birthday.
Happy
To try
birthday.
to, thanks, happy birthday, Steve Zapp, with radiation therapy, but hopefully it'll relieve the back pain, which, continues to get somewhat worse. And, clearly I have a lot of metastatic disease in my skeleton, but I also have some degenerative things in my lower spine. So we'll see if this helps some, and maybe I will start to do some therapy for my my lower back as well. I'll try to get some physical therapy. And I'm waiting, I also had a biopsy on the a nodule on my left adrenal gland. The pathology at Jefferson said it's metastatic, but after a fairly challenging fight with the people at Jefferson, I got them to send it to Foundation last Wednesday. It finally went out, and so I should have both a liquid biopsy results and the tumor biopsy results sometime. Well, the liquid's here, and then the tumor should be back here the scheduled date is March 8th. And I'm supposed to also get an FDG. Dr. E wants to see both the Pylarify and the FDG. She actually really wants the gallium-68, but it's kind of difficult at this point to get all the way out to California, unless my back stops hurting as much. And it's expensive. I'll do it if it'll be useful, but I haven't spoken to her where she said I definitely should do that. So we'll see what happens with the Pylarify, and we'll see why Dr. Kelly didn't order the FDG like I asked him to also. So that's kind of the update. And, I'm trying to figure out how to get a team quarterbacked by Dr. E and somebody to treat me here in Philadelphia with her. She's been traveling quite a bit lately. I hope to speak to her by the end of the week and figure that out.
Have you spoken to your guys at Penn, if they'll work with her?
Yeah, well, I spoke to, certainly the radiation department will. Dr. Narayan, I think, will also, frankly, both he and Dr. Kelly are both pretty pessimistic on my behalf in terms of any of these things really working. And, I just think that, based on my conversations with you and other things, this group, the moderators, I don't think they really understand the diagnostic tools that are available that can help us improve our treatment options. I just think that not every oncologist is doing that. And, I have a pretty serious and aggressive situation, and I'm not ready to accept that, a 10% chance of a treatment, which is basically what a phase 1 clinical trial is, I have learned. So we'll see. The liquid biopsies showed the same mutation that he wanted to treat, but I don't know that it showed it with any kind of certainty that it's actionable. And so, hopefully we'll see what happens with Pylarify. And I'm trying to get on a waiting list for lutetium. And, then I'll review with Dr. E. Hopefully, we'll come up with some options that have a better probability of success. I ain't going to get a guarantee, but, I'd like to get over 50% possibility of success. So that's the goal.
Two very interesting things I think to raise here for the benefit of the group. The first is, and you and I have not spoken about this, that you failed abiraterone many years ago.
I did. It wasn't many years ago. I stopped it in October of 2020 because my PSA started to go up. So yes,
Right.
I failed it, a year and a half ago.
Right. And that the fact that you may have gotten a result out of it by starting it
It's
again.
interesting. Not only that, it's contraindicated on at least one of the the mutations that I have. So, but yeah, let's see if it follows through. That would be great.
Yeah. So Herb, you know about that with the contraindication with the abi and the
Well, I mentioned it to
8788.
Steve. Yeah, it's there. But what's interesting, and since we have a little time, the more I've been thinking about it, the more it makes sense to prescribe abi with dex rather than prednisone. Because
Yeah, well,
that
I'm taking
mutation,
0.5 milligrams twice a day with the abi.
dex or prednisone.
Dex.
Right. So that sort of makes sense. And it may have been that I failed abi and you failed abi because we were getting prednisone at the time. And dexamethasone could have made a difference because, as I mentioned,
we'll see what happens the next time I take a test, but it's certainly worth talking about, and you guys know what to do with it if we get that, some anecdotal information from me.
Right. Well, it's not. Well, it's anecdotal, but it's also because when I think I mentioned to you all that this mutation that we share makes the receptor sensitive to other things, and other things include prednisone, but not dexamethasone. So, I'm wondering if it's really shouldn't be standard of care in the future to go with dex rather than prednisone with abi, but I'm not an oncologist.
It seems like a very small dose to me, compared to.
Well, it's not a matter of the dose; it's the chemical structure and how it will interact with the receptor. It's not the dose. They're both corticosteroids.
Right, like I'm learning the words. I don't always know the concepts yet as we go through this journey. So okay, that makes sense.
Herb, has anybody ever given feedback to the drug manufacturer?
Well, I'm sure they've got it because we have guys on this call who have gotten dexamethasone with abi rather than prednisone.
That's the doctor's choice, but I wonder if the company is
I'm sure they're aware of it.
Carl Van Zee, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a paper that's out on it that as soon as I mentioned it to my GU oncologist, he said, oh yeah, and here's it was I guess a pretty long trial, and so he went through all of the preconditions and he said, you meet all those preconditions, so let's try it. And it worked for me for a couple months. My PSA didn't drop, but it didn't drop.
Right. Well, again, my PSA wasn't really rising with the cabazitaxel, but he took me off of it because he wanted me on the clinical trial.
So let's talk, Len. I mean, you're our resident expert on dex versus pred because you've written it up and what have you.
Yeah. I was just about to post the link to the article. I think it was by Johan de Bono, and he showed that switching when you become resistant to abi, if you switch from prednisone to dexamethasone with abi, you can actually recover sensitivity to abi. I just posted it now.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I'll certainly keep everybody informed if I continue to make progress. That would be wonderful.
I think Len posted something about this before. It showed that people on dex went twice as long with Zytiga as they did with prednisone, and that's why I switched over to it a few months ago. But within 3 days, it caused me to have an AFib event, so I had to stop and go back to prednisone. And now I find I've got an aortic aneurysm, which never had a heart problem in our whole family. And you guys were talking about heart issues before. Anybody is there no aortic aneurysm? One of the things that the high blood pressure, I think, can cause it.
No, that probably has been developing slowly for a very long time, I would guess.
Yeah, I had one cardiologist tell me that he wouldn't even have called it that because I'm 6'4", and the numbers are only slightly enlarged. But I have to go for a test tomorrow, a CT scan to see what's going on. We were talking about heart issues, and there's another unusual one, I guess. I never had any, but I know that my blood pressure is like 150 in the morning, and
Wow.
yeah, and they've told me, it goes down to 120 or 130 in the, by midday, but that may be, and that's only because of Zytiga, only. I've never had high blood pressure before taking
medication?
Excuse me?
Take any blood pressure medication?
Yes, I started having to take that right away.
I take losartan.
That's what I take.
Which I had read and asked for because there was some studies that said it helped with the prostate cancer.
Oh, good to hear.
Medications and so forth. I couldn't explain why, but I did ask for it and they gave it to me. My blood pressure's been fine on medication, even with all this stuff. Yeah.
So the other issue that I wanted to raise from Steve's experience is something that we learned at Foundation Medicine. In fact, it's something Foundation Medicine learned at Foundation Medicine, which is that if you order a liquid and a solid test very close together, it throws a huge wrench in the system, and it throws up red flags, and they stop processing, and it's like, what do we do next?
In my case, it was also from two different doctors. But yes.
Well, yeah, two different doctors, and but as it turned out, everything was fine, and Steve has no out of pocket. But the Medicare systems are set up that whilst you can order both tests, if you order them at the same time, it may cause neither to go through. So if you ever come across that situation with your docs where they want to do both, and one of the reasons they really need to order both, and I've actually I discussed this with David Marshak recently, is because MSI cannot be measured very well, as I mentioned before, from blood samples, and the tumor mutational burden cannot be measured from a solid sample. And both of those are important factors. So really what they need to be doing, if you're going to do a solid tumor analysis, they really need to be able to to isolate a blood test for you that will measure your TMB, because that can be an important factor in determining what drug you're going to use. So you don't necessarily need a whole next generation sequencing, although it doesn't hurt, but you do need that TMB information. And that's it. Herb's TMB was very high. I mean, that could indicate that he's suitable for an immunotherapy drug, even though he wasn't MSI high.
Wait, the TMB comes from the solid tumor and the TSS comes from, do I have it backwards?
The other way around. The TMB comes from the liquid, and it's very hard to get an MSI result from liquid. You really need to, it's much more likely to come out of a solid tumor sample.
I mean, we'll be reviewing that hopefully very soon with Dr. E. Somebody that seems to understand it, which, as I said, I think there are other oncologists that I've been talking to that don't.
I really believe she understands a lot that other people don't see.
I mean, every one of these tests, they told me at Jefferson, we'll order it if you insist, but I don't think it'll get approved, which is infuriating, but like, I'm not going to whine about it, but I'm just, it is good for everybody to know that if these things, you think they're going to be useful, we all have to be, as everybody, the theme of AnCan is be your own best advocate. And it certainly has helped me be a better advocate for myself.
Thank you. Yeah, no, agreed. And, you know, this is all important information for you guys to hear. And, you know, one of the reasons why I think all of us here are big fans of Dr. E in particular, and a number of other docs who we find are very responsive and listen. So, well, guys, it's 5 minutes before.
Right.
This has been a great meeting.
Right.
Herb, you want to say something?
No, I'm saying
Indeed,
good night.
indeed it was. So
Saying
thank
it was a
you.
great meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Peter.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night. Good
Bye,
night.
guys. Bye, guys. Yep.